Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. So in this session we will talk about introduction to Python. Okay, so as part of this session we will see what is Python language, then who created this language, when it was created, and then finally we will see features of Python language. Okay, so let's start discussing each of these in detail. Okay, so the first thing is Python is a powerful programming language. Okay, now why we say Python is a powerful programming language? So this statement you will be able to understand once I'll cover features of Python. So getting to know after knowing what are the different features of Python, you'll be able to understand this statement why I'm saying that Python is a powerful programming language. Okay, now the next thing is Python was created by Guido van Rossum in year 1991. Okay, so Python was created by Guido van Rossum in the year 1991. Okay, now the third thing about Python is Python is a high level language. Now we have two types of the programming languages available. Okay, first one is low level language and second one is high level language. Low level languages, so we have two types of programming language, or you can say two types of programs. First one is low level language. And second one is high level language. Now what is low level language? So low level languages are basically written in the form of machine code. Okay, so the syntax is pretty much similar, or you can say it is pretty much closer to the machine code. Okay, an example of this language is C, Fortran, COBOL, then we have Pascal. So all these programming languages are called low level languages. Now high level languages are, their syntax is written in the form of English language. Okay, so high level languages, their syntax is written in the form of English language, and since the high level language syntax is written in the form of English language, that is why we can also say that Python is easy to code and understand. Okay, so we have two types of languages. First one is low level language, second one is high level language. In the low level language, the syntax is written pretty much closer to machine code, and the example are C, Fortran, COBOL, Pascal. All these are the low level languages, and high level languages are those languages whose syntax is written in the English format. So the example is Python, Java, C#, .NET, PHP, so SQL. All these languages are the high level language, and Python is a high level language because high level language is written in the form of English format. so we can say that it is easy to code and understand. Okay, now fourth thing is Python is dynamically typed language. Dynamically typed language. Now, why we say Python is a dynamically typed language? The reason behind this is we can use same variable to assign it with 2 or more than 2 different data type values in same block. Okay, so why we say Python is a dynamically typed language? Because an example of dynamically typed language is we can use a variable and we can assign this variable with 2 different data types values. So let's say initially we assign variable with integer value, and later on in the same block we can assign the same variable with string type value. So there is, when you run this code, Python will not give you any error. Okay, so let me show you the one example here. So let's say I'm creating a function in Python. So for now you don't need to bother how to create a function in Python, because I'll be covering this in detail in my later sessions. But here I'm using function just to show you why Python is called a dynamically typed language. Okay, so let's say I assign one variable here, a with value 10, then b with value 10, or let's make it 20. Okay, now I'll say print a plus b. So what will happen? This print statement will print the addition of these two integer values, a equals to 10 and b equals to 20, which will become 30. Now I'll use the same variable again and then assign it with some string value. So you can see here a is equals to string Python. Earlier a was equals to integer value 10. Now this a value is equals to string Python. Okay, and then similarly we can assign variable b also with another string value called learning. And again, when I'll say print a plus b, so this print will give the result as the concatenation of these two strings. So these two strings will be concatenated here. So in Python, this plus operator has two meaning. When you apply this plus operator with integer values, it will do the addition. But when you apply plus operator with string values, it will give you the concatenation of the string. Okay, and when you run this code, this is not going to give you any error. Okay, let me show you here in the PyCharm IDE. So let's say if I create one function here, okay, and assign value 10 to variable a, 20 to variable b, then I can say print, let me write one message also. So addition is a plus b. Okay, so now to print anything in Python, we use print function, and in this function we can pass any number of parameters. Okay, so the only thing that you need to remember is you have to put comma after each parameter. So you can pass any number of comma separated parameters inside the print function in Python. Now let's say if I again define the variable a with string learn and then b as Python. Again, when I'll print this, when I'll print this, I can put one message again, string is, and then a plus b. Now we have defined this function. Now in order to execute this function, we have to call this function. So to call the function in Python, we just use the name of the function along with the parenthesis. Now let's run this code. So you can see here the output is coming as addition is 30 and string is learn Python. So these two strings are concatenated here. So now inside this function block, we have used same two variables a and b, and these two variables has been assigned with two different types of values. First, it was assigned with integer values, and then after printing the addition, the same variables were assigned with string values. Okay, and when we execute it, Python is not giving any error. Okay, that is an example of why we call Python is a dynamically typed language. Okay, now next thing is what point it is? Yes. So next thing is Python is an open source language. Open source language. So what does it mean? It simply means that it is free to download. Any software which is open source, you don't have to pay for it to download it or to install it on your system. Okay. Again, next thing is Python is both compiled and interpreted language. Okay, so why we say Python is both compiled and interpreted language? Because when we execute our Python code, what happens? It is first compiled. It is first compiled and generates a bytecode. Okay, so when we execute our Python code, it is first compiled and generates a bytecode, and then this code is interpreted line by line with the help of PVM. What is this PVM? We call it as Python Virtual Machine. Okay, so we say that Python is both compiled as well as interpreted language. Why? Because when we execute our Python code, it is first compiled and it generates a bytecode. This bytecode is then interpreted line by line with the help of PVM. Okay. That is why we say that Python is both compiled as well as the interpreted language. Okay. Now, next thing is what is the official website of Python? Okay. So next thing is what is the official website of Python? So Python official website is www.python.org/website. So this is the official website of Python, and we will use this official website to download Python software, and then I'll show you how you can install the Python software on your system. Okay, so for now you just need to understand that this is a official website of Python. Okay, now the next thing is Python supports code modularization and reuse. Okay, so you can just divide your code into different modules just for making it easier to debug and understand. And also, if there is any block of the code that which is required to be used again, you can simply use it by calling that block of the code. Okay, and that is why we can say that Python supports code modularization and reuse. Okay, now the next point is Python provides both procedural as well as object oriented approach. Okay, so normally any programming languages are either the procedural type of language or it is an object oriented type of language, but here Python is both procedural and object oriented language. Okay, so example of some other procedural programming languages like are C language is a example of procedural language, and Java is an example of object oriented language. But we can write same code in Python using the concept of procedural language also and using the concept of object oriented approach also. Okay, now let's see how we can write this code. So let's talk about procedural approach. Now when I say A equals to 10, B equals to 20, and then I can say print A plus B. This is what I have already shown you, but let me do it again. So I define one variable here, A with value 10, then another variable with value 20, and then I can say addition result equals to A plus B. Now when we run this, we can see here it is giving us the result 30. So this is a procedural programming approach. Okay, we are just writing all the lines of the code in sequence. Now let's talk about the object-oriented programming approach. So in the object-oriented programming approach, we'll write the same addition program, but this time the approach will be different. Approach of writing the code will be different. Okay. So in the object-oriented programming, I'll tell you, I'll cover in detail what is object-oriented programming, but for now, as an introduction, I can tell you that object-oriented programming basically are those programming language in which we write our code with the help of the classes and objects. Okay, now let's try to write this addition program written in procedural language approach in the object-oriented programming approach. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll create a class addition. Inside it, what I'll do, I'll define one method, addition res. Now this will take two parameters along with one self container parameter, which is called self here. Okay, then colon. Inside it, what I'll do, I'll say self dot a equals to a, self dot b equals to b, and then I'll say self dot c equals to self dot a plus self dot b. Finally, what we will do, we'll simply say print self dot c. Okay, so what we have done, we have created a class and named it addition. Then inside this class we have created one method. The name of the method is addition underscore res, and in this method we are taking two parameters as an input, a and b, and this is a self container parameter. We'll talk about it when we will see how to write object oriented programming in Python. Okay, so for now just consider it as a third parameter, which is a self contained parameter. Okay, then what we are doing here, we are just assigning the value of a and b to this self container, and then we are just doing the addition of both the values, and finally we are printing the result. So in this, by using this approach also, we will get the same response. Let me show you here. So first of all, let's create one class. Inside it we'll define one method and we will pass two values, or let's make self as the first parameter and then a comma b. Now what we will do, we'll just assign the value of a and b to the self container, self dot b equals to b. Then we'll say self dot c equals to self dot a plus self dot b, and finally we will print value of the addition. Here also we can put one message. So addition result equals to this. Now when we run this code, so it's not giving any error. Okay, so that means this code is written correctly, but it is not printing the value. Why? Because in object oriented programming, to call any method, we have to first create an instance of the class, and then using that instance of the class we can call the method of the class. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just create one instance of addition class. Okay, then next thing is I'll say obj dot, using the instance I'll call the method, and in this method I'll pass two parameters only, because self is a default parameter, it is a self-contained parameter, we cannot pass the value of self here, but we can pass the value of a and b. Now let's run this code again. So now you can see here the result is again 30. So either using this approach or using the previous approach, you can write your program, and that is why we call Python is a procedural as well as the object oriented programming. Okay, now so these are basically the typical features of Python. Let's summarize each of these features again. So the first thing that we can say about Python is a open source language. It is a open source language, that means it is free to download and install on your system. Second one is Python is simple and easy to learn. So why it is simple and easy to learn? Because I have told you that Python is a high level language, and that is why, because high level languages are written in English format, so we can say that Python is easy to learn and understand. Third one is, again, Python is a high level language. Okay, because we write the syntax of Python in English format. Then fourth one is Python is a dynamically typed language. So why we call Python is a dynamically typed language? Because we can use same variable in the same scope to assign it with two or more than two different types of values. Okay, again, Python is platform independent language. So why Python is platform independent language? Because when we execute our Python code, bytecode is generated, and then we can use that bytecode to run it anywhere on the another system, if provided that system must have the PVM installed on it. Okay, so PVM is basically Python virtual machine. In our next session we will talk about how the Python compiles the code, but for now, why I am saying Python is a platform independent language, it is just because when we execute it, Python compiler generates a bytecode, and we can use that bytecode to run it anywhere on any other system. Okay, provided that system must have the PVM or Python virtual machine installed on it. Okay, and then finally Python is procedural and object oriented programming language. So just now we saw that how we can write the addition program both by using the procedural approach and by using the object oriented approach. Okay, so these are basically the features of Python, and that is why we can say that Python is a powerful programming language. Okay, so that's all for this session. See you in the next session. Thank you.